I don't remember anything, but I found out it's already Halloween. I forgot to decorate this year because I didn't have time. How did a bat get in here? But speaking of bats, that reminds me of vampires, and vampires remind me of Dracula. But when I think of Dracula, I think of Castlevania. Because it's the spooky season, it seems like it's the perfect time to go back to the beginning of the series.
Castlevania on the NES, released in 1987, was always one of those games that was called a classic or a must-play on the system. I remember playing this game a couple times, yet I could never beat it. I always remember enjoying it from the times I played it, but at the same time I would always give up after a couple game overs. Over time, it has always haunted me from that feeling of always being defeated by this game.
But that's gonna change today. I'm going to beat Castlevania on the NES. It has haunted me for way too long.
Before I start the game, I might as well look at the story. The manual gives us some backstory, but basically what happens is you arrive at this castle and it's filled with all types of monsters, and you gotta make your way through 6 floors to face the final boss, which is Dracula. But for some reason the manual just refers to him as the Count. Essentially, he returned after 100 years and it's up to you as Simon Belmont to stop him. That's a simple story we get for an NES game, and it's not too bad. Use A to jump and B to attack with the whip, which attacks straight ahead. Apart from the whip, there are other sub-weapons you can find in the game, and you use them by holding up and pressing B. The sub-weapons include the dagger that shoots forward, the axe that allows throwing in an arc for enemies above, the stopwatch that freezes enemies for a short amount of time, the boomerang that tosses straight in a direction and returns back to you, and the firebomb, which throws a projectile downwards and leaves a flame behind. The boomerang and firebomb's names get changed to their original names as the Cross and Holy Water in later entries, and it's only the manual which calls them as this. This was probably due to Nintendo of America's censorship policies on the NES, where they wanted to remain extra family friendly, so some religious imagery was sometimes removed or altered. But strangely, there's still an item called the Cross in the manual, which didn't have any alterations at all. This item spawns randomly, but when you grab it, every enemy on screen is killed. The controls in this game feel stiff at first, but it also feels like that the game was designed around how Simon controls. There's a certain rhythm with how Simon walks and moves with each jump that makes timing and platforming make a lot of sense. From the beginning of the game, it teaches you the rules and mechanics, with breaking candles for collecting hearts. Unlike most games, Castlevania wanted to be different for some reason, as the hearts don't restore your health, but instead are like ammo for your sub-weapons. The game also gives you the dagger right away at the start, right before entering the castle, which is a nice way to learn and experiment a little bit. Progressing in this game really feels like you're exploring a castle, with all these spooky monsters jumping at you, and whipping all the monsters. It all feels so satisfying. That is until you miss and then get hit, and there's always the knockback, which isn't too bad at the start of the game. This isn't a horror game, but rather a horror-themed game with all these monsters. But the scary part isn't even the monsters, it's hoping that you don't get knocked back into a pit. Later in the game, those pits become annoying, and with how Simon controls, it makes things tricky, so figuring out how he controls is important early on. Moving along the level, there's other things introduced, such as wall meat. These pork chops increase your health, but they are in the walls. That's really gross. Why would Simon eat that? But also in the walls are these Roman numerals which give you the double shot and the triple shot, which basically increase your sub-weapon usage from having 1 item on screen to 2 and then 3. As mentioned before, this game has 6 floors, and each floor there are 3 stages each, and dying in a stage takes you to the beginning of the stage, unless you get a game over, then you have to restart the whole area. Luckily this game has infinite continues. Every 3rd stage is a boss. The first boss is just a giant bat. Not too tough, as the game gives you an axe right before reaching the area. After you beat a boss, an orb falls down and you collect it before moving on. After clearing each boss, the game shows you a map of Dracula's castle. This is a fun detail, and gives you a sense of progression when going through the castle. Now on to Area 2, or that I like to call it Rooms of Red. I mean, look at it, the whole place is red. I know it's probably due to the NES color palette limitations, and this is also an earlier title in the system. That doesn't mean I am saying it looks bad, but it sticks out a bit for me. This area was a decent follow-up from the first floor, as there are more hazards and extra platforming, and it really forces you to get used to Simon's controls pretty early on. The boss here is Queen Medusa, who is only a head that floats around. I cleared it quickly with throwing the cross as quickly as I could. The 3rd floor starts with going left and has more enemies that jump at you, which adds to this whole game about memorizing patterns, which means getting used to timing your attacks for enemies. Yeah, I never felt like I knew this before. This was the farthest I had ever gotten into the game prior to playing today, and I would always rush and die a lot, and it always felt like it was never my fault. but when you take a step back and analyze Simon's movement, it just makes sense and going forward feels slightly easier. But the game is still hard because it partially has to do with memorization and the enemy placement as well. The boss in this area was 2 mummy men, and for me it felt like as long as you spam your whip attack with more than half full health, it can be cleared quickly.
We spent this whole time climbing the castle only for Simon just to fall all the way down. And from that height, Simon should have just broken his legs or something. But no, he just gets up and walks like nothing even happened.
After falling down, that means we're more than halfway done with this game, which probably means that the difficulty is gonna increase. This area features more pits while riding these moving platforms. But after that, stage 11 wasn't too bad. It was a straight line with falling enemies. The trick to getting through this part is hoping you memorize the whip's movement and knowing the enemy's patterns. It's also important to not let more than one enemy drop on the ground, or then they'll end up piling on you. And if you keep holding right, eventually you can walk right under this bone dragon enemy, which makes this easier than fighting it. Unlike stage 12, right before the boss room, it's so annoying. It has 2 of these bone enemies, and you have to fight them in this small area. This is where I noticed Simon's whip has a small delay. It's minor, but once I figured out how timing works, it made understanding this section more clear. The boss in this area is Frankenstein's monster and Igor. As with the last boss, you might as well reach this point with full health. Igor hops around so much as well as shooting fireballs, which makes it so unclear to focus on everything that is going on. There's probably a clear pattern here for this boss, but I just didn't see it. When I finally cleared the boss, it mostly felt like I got lucky. The next floor were stages 13 through 15, and for some reason, this is where I struggled the most. Every room felt like an enemy was going to immediately jump or throw something at me. Like at the start of stage 13, it just begins and then bam, these 2 enemies leap in my direction. It's not even safe to go up the stairs either, as now 2 of these skeletons are already prepared to toss their bones. It doesn't make sense as these stages don't look that different from previous ones, but for some reason everything feels harder and I lost my rhythm. And for some reason this happens too, it doesn't even make sense. I can't even hit the enemy for no reason. But then at the end of stage 15 is a hallway that goes from right to left, and it's a painful section if you don't know what you're doing. Endless Medusa heads flying at you in their pattern, while also avoiding axes thrown straight at you, and for every step you take, the same enemy also decides to take a step back as well, so you can't even jump over them. This whole section is about patience as well, and once you get hit, it can ruin your whole momentum and get you killed quickly. And the worst part of it all is dying here, since it will make you start back to the beginning of stage 15, which is annoying on its own, but getting a game over takes you all the way back to stage 13. Once you arrive at the boss, you are greeted by the Grim Reaper.
Wait, death works for Dracula? How does that even work? It's kind of weird if you think about it.
I actually like the death fight. His patterns weren't too hard to learn, and dodging all the things he threw at you felt like I actually won with strategy rather than luck. The problem wasn't the fight itself, but it was dealing with all the previous stages before reaching the boss. Stage 16 then follows outside, which is the last floor in the game. Walking across the peak of the castle, we encounter giant bats, which are just the same as the first boss. I found it easier just avoiding them than fighting them, especially since there's a stopwatch that appears up ahead. Stage 17 has a small clockwork section all about dodging, and none of this is as bad as the last area in the game, to be honest. And then stage 18, the music changes. All left is a singular staircase right before Dracula.
That's it. I'm finally about to face Dracula and finish this game once and for all, and I won't need to touch this game ever again.
But I only have 2 health points and no more lives left.
Wait, it doesn't send you to the beginning area? It saves you at Dracula? This is great! I bet I can actually learn Dracula's pattern and beat the game. The game's still hard.
The game also lets you farm for hearts here too. Just climb up and down the stairs here, and they always respawn. Not sure why the game suddenly tried to be forgiving. The way I was able to beat Dracula was timing the whip to hit the middle flame and walk through it, while also throwing the cross to hopefully get a second hit. The only spot Dracula takes damage is his head. You also have to keep moving around because Dracula likes to teleport, and he'll always try to teleport onto you. The first phase takes forever to get through, and it's super repetitive, because each hit you do only takes off one piece of his health, and getting hit at all during this fight removes 4 hit points from you. The second phase is so much quicker, but you have to learn his pattern, which dying here makes you start the whole fight over. The game really tests your patience here, because if you quit now, you'd have to start the whole game from the beginning. The way I beat his second phase was by ending his first phase on either of the sides, because when walking under him, it's almost impossible without getting hit. Then I spam the crosses at him, and then...
I did it! I beat Dracula. I beat Castlevania on the NES.
Watching that ending with Dracula's castle crumbling is so satisfying after dealing with all of that.
And that was Castlevania on the NES. Many people still consider this game a classic, and I mean, yeah, it's a pretty fun game. It's just really challenging, but it's so satisfying to complete. Well, at least vampires aren't real. Where am I? What was that sound? Whoa! No! No! Oh, 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 oh. What's an axe doing here? Don't come any closer! Sorry about your bad friend. I swear it was an accident. Please, leave me alone! Am I dreaming? What's going on? Are you after me?
Your time has run out.
I recognize your outfit. I feel like we've met before.
What have you done?
Who are you, and what do you want with me?
You know what I want. Blood.
Are you a vampire?
Exactly.
Am I really about to meet Dracula? It'd be really cool if I got an autograph from the Dracula.
Did you say I am not Dracula?
Well, you're a vampire, and when I hear vampire, I automatically think of Dracula. So you gotta be Dracula.
Do you really think every vampire you meet is Dracula?
Well, I've never met a vampire before.
Wait. You want blood? I can get you lots of blood. Tons and tons of blood.
I'm listening.
Yeah, I promise I can get you some blood. Not right now, but maybe in a year.
You have my word. Let's make a deal.
Well, that's one way to spend Halloween, I guess. A couple of things tried to kill me, and then they ended up burning on the ground. I met a vampire. I made a deal with that vampire. I sure hope nothing bad happens later.